And welcome everyone. I think that I'm live, but as you guys know, I'm not the biggest streaming specialist. So let me know if everything is working well. But at least I can see myself. So that's already a good start. Hi Paul. Hi RP Chess. Hi Harry. Hi everyone. Already so many people in the chat. Wow. Sorry for the delay, everyone. Wow, so many people. Oh my god. Pepsi Cola, Mladen, Peter also here. Peter and Paul. Welcome, guys. So sorry for the small delay. As you can see, I tried to implement the chat now in the stream. So let me know what you guys think about that. I did that myself just now, so it's probably not the best, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about it. Sip City Life, welcome to the stream. Yeah, so for today, the plan is to go through the games of round number 8 and round number 9 of the Austrian Championship. Since I didn't record a recap for either of those games, and I thought it would just be nice to make a kind of a summary of what happened in the tournament. And yeah, if you have any questions, guys, about the event in general, don't hesitate to ask them. In the meanwhile, I will just fix the complete setup, and I will add the game right here. Didn't intend to do that. Sorry about that. Now it's looking good. Eugene, good evening as well to you. All right. Stream is looking good, I think. What do you guys think? Everyone can see the board, the chat as well. So, looks good to me. Looks good to me. Oop, my phone just shut off, out of energy. I'll be back in 1 minute, and then we will start with the analysis. Okay. So let's start with the analysis, if there are no questions at the start. Otherwise, I'll have a look at the chat, of course. It's just now that my phone shut off. You can see that I'm not a professional streamer. Otherwise, I would have a second screen already. But I don't have that yet. So in the meanwhile, I'm still reliable on my... I'm still relying on my phone for the live chat, which is a bit embarrassing, but I'm doing the best I can. I see we have a Reti hater in the chat. But it worked in the tournament. I mean, I won one game with white, and the second one was a draw, which I played in the last round, which we're gonna have a look at. But had pretty good positions overall. I didn't really visit Budapest just for fun, I think. I was there for a couple of tournaments. Well, the Olympiad, of course, being the last one. And I also have a good friend who's a strong chess player who lives in Budapest, so I went to his place 1 or 2 times to work on chess. Perfectionism isn't everything, yeah? You were saying it, Pepsi Cola. That's correct. Reti is a great opening, yeah? I agree. I agree with that. Okay, so let's start with the first game. It was against David Shantana from round number 8, and I had the black pieces. The funny thing about the game is, in the evening afterwards, I sat down at my laptop and I was really trying to record the recap, but it was already like 10 p.m. in the evening, and the next round was at 10 in the morning, and I just couldn't make any sense of the variations which I was talking about, and then I just stopped recording. And yeah, you can find the final video on my channel anyway. It was like a 1-minute video where I just basically said that there is no point for me to make a recap if I'm not putting out any good quality information. So I just didn't really see the point. But hopefully today I'm gonna make good for that by hopefully providing you with some good variations. My phone is back up, so now I'm looking at the chat as well. So again, let me know if you guys have any questions whatsoever. So it was round number 8, and now you already know what happened after the game, but you don't know yet what happened before the game. Nothing special, actually. It was just that I really had to play for a win in that game, because I was on an equal score then. I won my first game in the tournament, then I made many draws, and then I lost in round number 6 to Lukas Stotzo, who is one of or probably the most talented young player from Austria. He's still only 15 years old and has already around 2,500, and he, in my opinion, he's really strong. And somehow, especially against me, he plays really well, or in that game he played really well. So I lost that one, but you can find the recap of that game on my channel. So with that being said, I was on ±0, so I made a couple of draws, won one game and lost one game. So I really needed to win at least this game to have sort of an acceptable tournament. And in the last round then, which we're going to have a look at later, I faced off Valentin Dragnev, which it was quite obvious that it's going to be quite a tough game. Who is your idol in chess? I would say Magnus Carlsen, probably. I grew up with him being the best, so that's why Magnus and not, for example, Gary. But of course, there are many strong players. I also really like Capablanca's chess. So yeah. How does knowing your games are being watched by many in real time affect your performance? If it does at all, nerves or excitement? Not really nerves, I would say. Anyway, a lot of people are watching live tournaments, I would say, at least if they're kind of high quality games, which I at least hope it was the case, at least in some games in the Austrian Championship. But I don't really get too excited because of that. I just try to play my best chess, and while I'm playing, I don't really think about what other people might say about the game, or at least I try to, because I don't think it's really really helpful. Yeah, this is the first game I'm analyzing against FIDE Master David Shantana. We didn't really start yet, but we're gonna get into it now. Yeah, so with that being said, earlier I needed to really play for a win. I played against Shantana, who has around 2,400. FIDE Master, he's, I think, my age, maybe a bit younger. Yeah, 2004. So I really wanted to play for a win, and therefore I went for the Sicilian. And I mostly prepared the Rosalimo as well, because he had, I think, 2 games already in that event before, and has never really played d4. Actually, to be quite honest, I didn't even know what I would play against the Open Sicilian, even when I was sitting on the board. I had kind of 2 options prepared. The first one was the Sveshnikov with knight f6, knight c3, e5, and then to go for this. The second option, which I kind of planned, was the Kalashnikov as well, with d6, and then to just try and get a game somehow here. But yeah, it wasn't the best preparation which I had in the Open Sicilian, I have to be quite honest. Which software do you use to make your opening repertoire? Is it ChessBase? Yeah. Also, I'm analyzing now on ChessBase. It's just kind of the go-to software for professionals. I also know many strong players that only use Lichess as a software, which I think is also quite reasonable. But ChessBase does offer a couple of things which are very useful. the most important one I would say is the online database. I can show you guys if I just press enter, then the database opens and I just see all of the games which have been played, which is a thing which is otherwise not so common on other websites, I would say, or other softwares. But I use leeches for the PGNs, which I put in my description sometimes, because obviously, yeah, not everyone has ChessBase, of course. But about the game, David went for the Rosolimo, and I prepared this line with e6 a little bit, since I saw that he mostly goes for taking on c6. He already had 2 games here earlier. Apart from taking, white has a couple of different moves. Short castle is quite interesting. I mean, it's like the main line by far. c3 is another interesting move, which I played against Anish Giri actually in the German Bundesliga, which is quite a tricky line, I would say, for black to handle. But I was not really scared of that, since I checked many of those sidelines myself from the white side. Yeah, we're still at the Sicilian now. That was a Sicilian game. So short castle is the main line. Here, black usually goes for knight e7. They have been experimenting also with some knight d4 moves also here already. I would say a bit more accurate is knight e7 first and rook e1, which is the main move, and then knight d4. This is quite an interesting line. We often see some positions like this. I think c3, a6, bishop. Is it here, bishop f1? How does it go? I remember some lines like this where white goes for some b4 and then knight a3, knight c2, or bishop b2. So that's one of the possible lines here. But of course, also black doesn't have to go for knight d4. There are so many different systems. a6 is the main line when white usually goes back, and then again black has d5 as the main move. But also they have been experimenting with many lines like b5. I think even Prague played h6, just some kind of waiting moves. So that's what I like about the e6 Rosolimo, that black has quite a lot of flexibility and can just switch between systems, which I think is quite nice. But he went for taking on c6. Now d takes e6, b takes e6, of course. D takes e6 here would be quite bad, since black already played e6, and there's no real way to build a center. Black would have to get in e5 here somehow, but it's going to be way too slow. Maybe white can even play e5 himself sometimes. This idea is only common in the g6 Rosolimo. Like if white takes here, black often takes back with the d-pawn. But now, of course, there's quite a big difference. The bishop is going to go to g7, and then black usually plays for e5. The chat is frozen. Thank you for letting me know. I don't know why that sometimes happens. Now it should be back up. Now it should be back up. Yeah, so after bishop takes e6, I sort of have to take back b takes e6, and the resulting structure is very, very interesting. What I also thought about was that it's kind of the same structure which can also rise in the English opening, which I also checked a little bit for the tournament. Right here, after knight c6, e3, bishop b4, queen c2. The main line goes bishop takes c3, and now almost everyone, or most players, take on c3 with the queen. But there is also this move with b takes c3, which is also quite interesting for the white side. Dingley Ren had a game here. Froze again. Oh, that's strange. I think I shouldn't close the tab. Just if I do it like this, then I think it should be fine. I hope that now the screen is not gonna freeze anymore, because now I adjusted the tab. Give me 1 second, my phone cable is making some chaos here. All right. It froze again? No, now it doesn't freeze anymore, I believe. At least I hope so. At least I hope so. What are you guys talking about? Did I make courses about something? You're talking about the bird opening. Yeah, I didn't play that in the tournament. but maybe I should. Maybe I should. Anyway, let's get back to the line. So b takes e6, and the structure itself is very interesting because black has the bishop pair and has long-term chances to seize control of the center, somewhat similar to some of the Nimzo lines as well, I would say. That you get the bishop pair, but on the other hand, your pawn structure is broken. So you need to try to grab space as soon as possible and just play in the center and try to open up the position for your bishop on c8, which is often the problem for black in those positions. So he went d3, which is still the main move. There are a couple of different moves as well, like b3 immediately is also possible. But d3 is the main move. And here black has two main options. The first one is knight e7, which is mostly played. And the other move, which I played in the game, is queen c7. Now both moves are perfectly playable. The idea of queen c7 first is that I want to go e5 immediately with black and then have the option to also put the knight to f6 in some cases. So that's the advantage. Generally, if knight e7, white often plays for ideas like h4 in this position because the knight really wants to go to g6, and then h4, h5 makes a lot of sense for white. Actually, for white, it's important here that short castle is already not really a great move, because now black after knight g6 would get a very comfortable position with moves like, I don't know, maybe black can even play for d5 at some moment, but probably just e5, bishop e7, castle, and sooner or later black will play for some f5 with quite a good position. So therefore, after knight e7, white has a couple of moves like knight d2 or queen e2, I think are possible. Maybe also h4 right away. Quite typical ideas, because black then often has to play h5 himself, but then the g5 square is going to become quite weak. So that's one issue sometimes. But in the game, I went queen c7, and now he thought for a couple of minutes and went for e5, which still I haven't checked to this day. I wasn't really aware with that move, because white doesn't really play e5 unless he really has to, because he is giving me the chance to break the center with f6 right away. His idea obviously was to stop me from playing e5 myself here, but white can actually allow that and again play for some h4 lines, like I think even maybe right away h4 is possible, or queen e2 first, quite a typical move here. And the downside also, if e5 comes, then white often has very concrete ideas to play, for example, short castle, knight h4, and then f4. And when black takes here, then we see that the queen is also not maybe that great on c7, because the bishop on f4 is going to attack it as well. Who was out of the book first? I guess my opponent, because he started thinking after queen c7. He was of course aware of the move, but didn't really remember what his preparation was. So that's why I guess he freestyled with the move e5. And now I was also out of book and played knight e7, which I think is a reasonable move, but probably f6 right away would have been a little bit better. I'm just briefly gonna check this with the computer as well, because I haven't really gone over it yet. But I'm still gonna talk you through what were my human thoughts in the game. So it looks like f6 is actually quite an important move to make. The move knight e7, which I played in the game, is also not all that bad, but gives actually quite a considerable advantage to white, like 0.60 or 0.70. Because in the game, he was now in time to play b3 and bishop b2. So I think I underestimated that. f6 right away is possible. I just wanted to stay more flexible and not play f6 right away. But now, of course, he's not in time to get b3, bishop b2. I was considering bishop f4 here, and then knight e7, and I just wasn't really sure about the position. I guess that I'm playing for knight g6, but it just looked a little bit scary to have the queen here in the same diagonal as the bishop. Who is, in your opinion, the best Austrian chess player right now? Well, if we judge by FIDE list, then surely it's Kirill Alexyenko, who changed federation to Austria already about 2 years ago, and he's also he's also planning to live or already living in Austria. So I guess we can really count him as a full Austrian now, and that means that he's definitely the strongest one. Thank you, Derveni. I am having a nice evening. Thanks to you guys. Yeah. But actually nowadays we have quite a strong team also for the next European Team Chess Championship. I can tell you already what is probably going to be our lineup. It's first of all Kirill Alexenko on board number 1. Then we have Markus Rugger, who is still very strong 2600 Grandmaster, peak rating above 2700. Then we have Valentin Dragnev, who I played in the last game. And we have Dominik Horvath, who won the Austrian Championship. And then probably on the last board is going to be myself. So I think already now we have actually a very strong team, which can definitely achieve something in those team events. Hi Felix, great to see you. Will there be more made in 2 to 5 puzzles soon? Good that you mention it. I often forget about it, and to see you guys commenting and wanting to see it gives me the motivation again to put them out. I'm never so sure, like many people don't really like those checkmate problems. I myself really love them, but that's why I'm never really sure. Yeah, if you guys actually want to see them. No, Alexenko didn't play the last Olympiad yet. There is this kind of period which you have to wait, I think, to play those team events after you changed federations. Yeah. King's Indian is great, and I'm gonna give you one more thing now. I'm actually, well, first of all, I'm gonna record King's Indian like a mini course for my supporters on YouTube, which is gonna come out still this month. And second of all, I'm going to Hamburg next month to record a whole course, kind of a lifetime repertoire for ChessBase on the King's Indian. So there are gonna be 2 King's Indian courses, I would even say, from me coming up pretty soon. So for all the King's Indian fans, I hope that's gonna be useful for you. Yeah, I still read chess books. Right now, I'm not sure what I'm reading. I have quite a couple of them here. I read How to Play Equal Positions by, I think it was Cotronias quite recently. That was a good one. But I have a couple of them which I still want to read. Also, recently I purchased one game collection from Karpov's Games, and I ordered a couple more. Yeah, I have a couple of them which I still want to read. Yeah, how I feel about the tournament? Well, I mean, it could definitely be better, but it could also be worse. I think I played some pretty normal games. Some of them were actually of quite high quality, I would say. But on many occasions, I just didn't realize my chances, and that was just the main issue. If I'm working, and which I'm gonna do, if I'm gonna work on just my technique and really trying to really win those positions where I'm already much better, then I think it's gonna work out much better. Yeah, the King's Indian course for YouTube is gonna be for members only, and for ChessBase it's gonna be like an online course which you can purchase on their website. But I am feeling motivated also after the event now. I mean, that's typically what happens if you have an event which is not so great, then often you wanna just come back and fight back and show some good results. I'm kind of in the middle now. I am definitely quite exhausted from the event, but I'm also looking forward to the future, and I don't really take those sort of bad results now as, yeah, I don't take them badly. It's just what happens, and yeah, that's basically it. Can you win it next year, Austrian Championship? I hope so. You're letting me know that the chat froze again. I don't know why that's the case. I really have no idea. The window is always closing. If you have any tips how I should do that, because I have the like a pop-out window open with the chat, But once I start analyzing again, then I think the window closes, and therefore the chat freezes too. What can I do about it? Yeah, I'm not sure. If there's an OBS expert among you, then please reach out. But apart from that, let's get back to this line right here. I think the chat is gonna freeze again, but as I said, if someone knows, please help me. Yeah, the tournament was very interesting, that's true, because there were really many strong players and it was an extremely young field. The average age, I think it was like 21 or even 20, which is extraordinarily young for a state championship. I was actually one of the oldest participants in the field. So that already means quite a lot, I would say. It's usually if the window loses focus or something like that. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, for some reason, whenever I switch to the window again, then it shows me, but yeah, strange. Old man Felix, yeah, that's true. In that field, I was really looking like an old man, or I was feeling like an old man. Is this the line which Magnus had? I was asking myself the same thing. I was asking myself the same thing. I will check that in a second. Yeah, it's the on-screen chat, yeah. So the Magnus game which you're referring to, let me just think who it was against. It was in the World Cup, but I'm trying to figure out which one it was. I think it wasn't D3 maybe. Shevchenko, I don't think so. Abbasov, yeah, that was the game. Yeah, and he played B3. Grandpa Blowberger, yeah. And Magnus played B3 and it was D6, E5, D takes E5, and now D3, which was already back then quite a rare idea. And this type of pawn sacrifice is, I would say, a bit more uncommon. Typically, we often see it with this pawn being on D6. And if that's the case, then the bishop on C8 is also kind of boxed out. And it's sometimes not so clear if having this pawn on E6 is even good for black, because if the pawn wouldn't be there, then the bishop could be activated. So that's what Magnus played. Abbasov played F6, knight D2, knight H6, and rook G1. That was Magnus's game. I'm not sure if he was still in preparation here, but rook G1 is the top computer move, so I'm guessing. Maybe he saw the idea as well. And Abbasov, I think, got into quite some trouble pretty soon. Bishop A6 was a bad move, it seems. He should go for this type of pawn sacrifice at some moment C4. Or even earlier. Like here, it's also one option to just give up the pawn and try to open up the position for the bishop on C8. But let me just briefly go through what happened in the game. Magnus got G4, and this type of position, I mean, black is a full pawn up and has the bishop pair, but Magnus is already close to winning here. That's a crazy thing, because black's pieces just don't have any room to go, and white can in some case castle queenside. Even here, castling queenside would have worked perfectly well, because after queen takes A2, apparently there's C4, and I think this queen might get trapped or is just in trouble. What a crazy variation, yeah? White is just going king c2, rook a1. Is 2 pawns down, but is completely winning according to the computer. When are we actually analyzing the game now? If you have to ask that, then you don't know me yet, because I'm always drifting off like that. But I still feel like some people are enjoying it, that I talk about some other things, but I'm gonna get back to the game pretty soon. Yeah, now Black's position is looking quite bad. Yeah, but still, that it's already so bad, it's kind of tough to believe for me, because the queen goes back, and yeah, computer just gives king c2, rook a1, at some moment g5, and says that white is completely winning. I still wanted to show that game just because it's quite nice for the understanding of this whole structure. Magnus played c4 and still had a huge advantage here, and at some moment he won the game. Yeah, it's quite a nice position just to see that, because white just has very nice domination of the on the light squares, and the pawn on c5 is always weak, so Magnus was still a lot better here. Just do what you want, dude. We are enjoying it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. So that was Magnus's game. It's good that you guys mentioned that, because I was actually thinking about it too in the game. But in the game it was d3, queen c7, and now e5. And yeah, here I should have played f6, and I was just not sure about this position after bishop f4, knight e7. I'm not sure what I thought about. Maybe it was bishop g3 and f takes e5, but apparently black is just doing okay. I can just go d6 and there's just nothing, because queen h5 doesn't do anything. I think I was looking at this line, queen g5 now, because I cannot take, because then I'm going to lose the rook on h8. But I can just go bishop g7 or knight f5, and then black is probably even winning, because bishop h6 is going to come with the tempo as well. So basically what happened is I just played knight e7. I thought it's not going to make such a big difference, and I want to stay flexible still and maybe play knight g6 first to win a tempo on the pawn, and only then to play f6. But he played b3, which was quite a strong move. Now knight g6, which was my idea anyway, bishop b2, bishop e7. And now my idea was just to go for short castle on f6, because d6 is not really a break which I want to go for. I mean, first of all, pawn on g7 might be hanging, but even if white doesn't take that and goes for something like knight d2, I would still be much worse. I mean, it's basically the Magnus game, just that the pawn is not on e5, which, yeah, black will have the option to play e5 and bring out the bishop, but still the pawn on c5 is just a huge weakness, and white should be much better here. So that's why I went for bishop e7, and here he played h4, which I think was still a good move, f6. But here taking on f6 I think was a huge strategical error. And instead white had a couple of interesting options. The one which I was mostly calculating was h5. And after knight takes e5, take here. Now I contemplated a couple of options. The first one and most concrete one was h6, g6, and now f4. But I felt like I should have quite good active chances here after f takes e5. First of all, I was also considering rook f8. That I was still not so sure about it, because in both cases anyway, white has to take back with a pawn, since taking with the bishop would just drop the pawn on f4 next. I guess castling is the move which I would have made, and here from afar I was thinking that c4 is good, d takes c4, and now c5 I was considering. And my idea was then to just go bishop b7, and also here objectively black has very good compensation. f6 was my favorite move of the game. I also really like this motive, yeah, just to play in the center with f6. I like that one. So that was the line I was calculating, starting I don't know where. I guess starting here when I played bishop e7. I saw that h5, take everything, g6, f4, which is actually not a good move, but still I was thinking about it because it looked kind of logical. And if white gets two more moves, knight d2, knight c4, I thought I'm strategically in a very, very bad spot. That's why I was thinking about that, yes, like c4. Computer says that even d5 is better here, which I didn't really understand in the game. Because after taking, well, I just saw the bishop on b2 is opening up, but white, of course, has the issues that the king is very weak, and therefore white even has quite a lot of troubles to finish the development, and black has a very strong initiative here. Yeah, the king looks very weak already here on e1, yeah. Another move apart from h6 I was considering was for white just to go, for example, knight d2, and then just to play for compensation, like long term. I don't know what I would have played, maybe h6, and then just, for example, queen e2, d6, and long castle. I thought this position was quite interesting. In the evening, I was looking at it a little bit with my phone, just because I was trying to understand what was happening here. And the computer always gave a slight edge to white, but I didn't really fully understand why. Because, yeah, black is extremely solid, and I don't see how white can start an attack on the king side. Black also cannot start an attack on the queen side as well, because after a5, white is just always going to play a4. And then the pawn on a5 is going to be weak, and black didn't gain anything. Yeah, d5 was insane, yeah. I also thought so. I didn't see that at all earlier. But the thing about this position, I just didn't understand why it should be any better for white, because I will just play, for example, bishop d7 and double the rooks on the f-file. Let's just say white goes king b1, bishop d7. I will play rook f7, rook f8, and well, it's probably going to be difficult for black to win, but I don't think that black should be worse either. Yeah, that was this line. Computer gives queen f3 here, which is maybe a smart move. That's actually quite beautiful, because white is avoiding black. White is stopping black from castling kingside. That's quite a funny idea. I guess I can also play for queenside castling. That might also be one idea, like king b1 and then castle queenside maybe. Very unstandard position. Like I never really saw this type of position before, I have to be honest with you. Yeah, light square bishop is useless, of course. Yeah, that's a problem. The funny thing is, I'm again drifting off here a little bit, but before the tournament, I checked one interesting line, also from the English opening. And I'm going to show you how it came. It was queen c2. Not queen c2, it was e3, bishop b4. Take, e4, which is not the main move. Black usually goes for castles and d6, but e4 is a very concrete line. Knight g5, queen e7, f3, and here the main line goes, I think, taking on f3, and then something like this, which is also very interesting for both sides, basically. But the idea was d6, which I checked, and there was one Van Forest game. Yeah, it was this one. And it really reminded me of the line we just saw earlier, because Van Forest played this against Ding Liren in Wijk aan Zee, in the Talastil tournament. And it just looks like an endgame for white with a pawn up. But black is just so solid, and there's actually no way for white to make any progress in this position. Like, black is just going to play, I checked this quite a lot, black is going to play bishop e6, then h5 and h4, just b6, at some moment maybe knight a5. And yeah, there's just nothing really what white can do here. It's important for black to play h5 though, not to let white gain space on the king side with g4. The only thing black needs to be careful of, that white is not in time to play in the center with d4 early. But that of course also creates a lot of weaknesses, but black needs to be a bit careful of that. And also that when white goes bishop a3, you need to go b6 here right away, otherwise white is going to get c5 in the next move. So it reminded me of this game, so I thought this was quite a funny line to show on the stream as well. But back to what we just had, bishop e7, h4, f6, and h5 was the line I was considering. Yeah, but I don't think it's so clear, at least practically speaking. The best move, however, according to the computer, is knight bd2. And now, once again, I guess that, taking on e5 even has the problem that at the end the pawn on e5 is dropping. Like, white has queen h5 here. That's one issue. And after g6, I'm not even sure if white would take on e5. Maybe just queen h6. I guess taking might also be pleasant. like something like this. If black gets one more move with d6, maybe it's not all that bad, but white is gonna play either knight e4 or knight c4, and then black is not really in time to develop. So after knight bd2, I guess I would have castled, and now the computer also goes for this position, and is now arguing that the inclusion of h6 and g6 is very nice for white, which I don't really understand yet. So let's make a couple of moves. I'm playing humanly from the black side, and I'm playing against a computer here. So queen e2, d6, long castle. I will go bishop d7. Computer goes king b1. I will go rook f7 maybe, which is not the best move, but I don't care for now. Rook f8, just doubling rooks. And apparently this position is like 0.8 for white. So what exactly is white's plan here? I'm just gonna sit and wait. Rook f5, knight e4. You will never guess what is black's best move here. You will never guess it. But I'm giving you guys a chance. What do you think is black's best strategic idea in this position? Rook h5. After rook h5, white would surely take, and now the king is very weak. So maybe go after the h5 pawn. Maybe your idea was bishop e8, bishop g6 here. That might be one idea. But still, it seems very, very weakening to me, and maybe white can try to open up the position immediately with like g3, or maybe even g4, but I like g3 and f4 on the next move. Looks like g8 is gonna be, the king on g8 is gonna be very weak. King f7, Peter, you got it, yeah? Looks like king f7 is one interesting plan. And the computer actually wants to bring the king to the queen side here. Yeah, you can also offer a draw, I guess, but I'm not sure if white would accept. So this is a cool idea. White is still much better, but I just thought the idea was cool to show. So about this line with rook h5, you were saying g3 and then bishop e8. I guess still f4, yeah? That was the plan. And yeah, if you take it, it just looks like something will happen, yeah? Along the g file, or the knight moves, then e6 is going to hang. So this just looks quite dangerous. King f7 voodoo magic, yeah? So it's interesting that the position with h6, g6 included seems to be a bit dangerous for black. It's still not entirely clear after this king f7 motive, or also if black just doesn't do anything. I'm not sure how white is actually going to make progress. But maybe try to get the bishop to g5 at some moment and just slowly maneuver around down. Computer brings the knight to c4 as far as I'm seeing sometimes. But still, yeah, I don't agree with +1 here, honestly. Like, this seems a bit too much. And I think in practice, this could very well end in a draw as well. So knight bd2 was best, but he took on f6, and the strategical problem with taking on f6 is simply that that white is giving up the center, and now I'm also gaining some time to develop my pieces. Yeah, rook h5 was an interesting try. Yeah, d5 drops the e5 pawn, yeah. Rook h5 interesting, but it just does weaken the king significantly, and then white can just try to open the position immediately. So that was the issue. And taking on f6 has a problem that now I'm getting control of the center, and I also get the g file now. So that's why taking is probably not the best. Even though my way of recapturing was probably also not the best. G takes f6 is maybe a bit better, which I was also thinking about, and I thought it's quite interesting from a strategical point of view as well. because I thought that if I take with the bishop, I'm exchanging his strong bishop on b2, and also I'm getting the e7 square for the knight, which sometimes might be useful. But it probably turns out that it's maybe not the best decision. It's not entirely clear. But what does speak for g takes f6 is that I'm anyway going to play e5 and then just shut out this bishop on b2. And I'm keeping the bishop pair in the long run. And what's another factor is that I have more space, at least in 2 or 3 moves. And if you have more space, then you should keep many more pieces on the board. So from that explanation, maybe I would have came to the conclusion that taking with a pawn might be a bit better. But also bishop takes f6 was quite a normal move, so it's not like it was a bad decision or anything. Computer gives h5 here, important, which I was also considering, knight f8, and now anything, yeah, like knight c3, queen d2, long castle. I was not so sure how the position is. I think I was looking at some immediate ways like queen h6 at some moment, but probably it's not so great. I just wasn't sure. Just anxious about queen g7, but I guess I can just go rook g8, and the queen is not really achieving anything on h6. Yeah, in the French, black sometimes gets the center but sacrifices a piece for it. Yeah, that's true, Peter. Yeah, I would also say both seem logical and both have some explanations for them. I want bishop f6, which I also think is a reasonable move, yeah. Because I'm exchanging the bishop, and the bishop on e7 also felt to me like it's not really such a great piece. So that was another one of my explanations. He went king f1 here, which was a really shocking move and also not a great move, because I didn't really see the point. Like, I thought that he should go to the queen side at some moment anyway, because on the king side it's just never really going to be safe. So I was considering moves like knight c3 or queen d2, and I would have most likely just played e5. I don't know, let's say queen d2, d6, long castle, and now probably I would have also gone for long castle, like probably bishop g4 and then long castle. Still looks quite comfortable for me, I would say, over the board at least, but anything is possible here. Yeah? Like my king on the queen side is also not going to be so extremely safe, and I do have the doubled pawns in the long run. But of course I have many nice squares and my bishop is also very strong. Still, king f1 was not a good move. He could have also played h5, maybe that was the best, just to kick away my knight. I was actually not sure where I would go, but I think I was planning to go to e7 now that I traded my bishop. And then again, just e5, d6, and bishop g4, bishop e6. He went king f1, now I went e5. Eugene is asking why d6 instead of d5. Well, that's a good question. Yeah, for example, here what I just showed. With d5, my issue was always that this pawn on c5 can be weak, and like, for example, knight a4, and often it's going to be quite difficult to defend c5. Because generally white always has these ideas to go after it with queen a5 as well. So it was e5, h5 now, knight f4. I was also considering knight e7, but it just felt more natural to put the knight here, even though I was taking in account for having the knight on e6, which will temporarily block the bishop on c8. But what I was looking for was this square on d4, which seemed quite attractive in many positions. So that was good. He went knight h4. And here, after all, I went for d5, which now it's quite different because I have the knight on e6. And this is another thing which is useful here now, because the knight on e6 is always going to be defending the pawn on c5. So therefore here, it's probably no reason not to go d5, because I'm just grabbing more space. And anyway, c5 is well protected. He went queen d2 and now short castle, which might have been not the best decision. I should maybe go to queenside castling somehow, like just bishop b7 or bishop a6, and then castle queenside somehow. I was not sure even what was my issue here, because I'm just gonna castle queenside and then start attacking with f5 probably. So that seemed like quite an easy continuation. Bishop a6 or bishop b7, I guess they are both pretty good. Yeah, I went short castle in the game. Is it so surprising? Like, I thought it's also kind of logical. Because I felt like the king should also be quite safe here, and I just wanted to connect my rooks pretty soon. But now that I think about it, the king is probably actually much more safe on the queen side than on the king side, yeah. Now that I think about it. For some reason, I saw both bishop a6 and bishop b7, but I wanted to have my bishop on this diagonal. And after bishop d7, I think I was worried about, was it queen h6, but probably it anyway doesn't work. Like, I thought that white can just grab this pawn, but it doesn't seem so healthy to do so for white. I mean, I'm gonna get e4 and everything just opens up. It's probably suicide for white. Yeah. So this would have been a better decision, but I went short castle. He went c4, which I thought was also surprising because now he's giving me the d4 square. I was mostly considering him to just go knight c3. And then, honestly, I wasn't entirely sure what I would do. I'm thinking now what might have been my move. I think I was looking at knight g5 here to activate my bishop, but I wasn't so sure about f4. Take, and now I only considered the knight going back, which seemed a little bit wrong because now my king is actually becoming quite unsafe. But there is a very strong move here, which I missed. Can you guys find it? Black has a very strong move here. No suggestions? Honestly, I'm not sure I would find it as well here. Like, even if someone gives it as an exercise to me. For some reason, bishop g4 is extremely strong, which, okay, I didn't see that in the game, of course. The funny thing is that white cannot take here because then the f-file is opening up and I'm just gonna take back the piece. And apart from that, what is black even trying to do on the next move? Just knight e6 back maybe and then f5. So that's super strong. Yeah, bishop g4. Wow, so many people found it down after all. King h8 was another suggestion here. I guess the idea is the same, but now you have to be careful always about some knight g6 ideas. Like, I saw this in the game at some point. Here it probably doesn't work because you can just put the knight in front, like knight h3 or bishop h3. But there will always be the option. And white maybe now moves the king, like king g2. And now white is actually getting ready to take on g5, so I'm not sure how it would continue here. Yeah, but bishop g4 was super strong here. I didn't see that in the game, of course. So I expect the knight c3, and it should also be the best move. My opponent went c4, which is kind of a typical idea also in the Nimzo, just to blockade the pawn on c5 and then to attack it later on with knight c3, knight a4, and rook c1. But on the other hand, it also just weakens d4 square. Also, the pawn on d3 is going to be weak, so I don't think that this was a good decision. I went knight d4, which I think is very natural. Just putting the knight there. Computer also gives knight g5 and says it's interesting, but I don't really understand it. Knight d4 just seems so natural because I just have the nice square on d4. Knight c3, bishop g4. And with bishop g4, I had to calculate that white cannot take on d5 here because I have queen b7. And then he's losing the piece because of this nice pin on the long diagonal. Another important thing was that here I have either king f7 or queen g7, I thought. Computer sees even rook g6, which I missed in the game. Because if white takes, it's going to be checkmate on h1. I was considering king f7 and queen g7, but after both of these moves, black is just winning. He went rook c1, so I don't know, maybe he didn't see queen b7, but like otherwise I was quite happy that he takes on d5 already, because now he's giving me the option to play c4 at some moment. I thought that rook c1 immediately should be better, because now he's still keeping the option, and I will anyway not really take on c4 probably, because yeah, he's going to take back bc. And I exchanged my central pawn for white's b pawn, which is probably not such a great trade-off for me. So he should have played rook c1, but he took. Now, of course, he didn't take on d5, but he played rook c1. I played rook d8, just defending d5 now, because it might be hanging at some moment. And he played now h6, because probably I'm getting ready to take on h5 in some cases now. I went king h8, which is actually the best move. Here I was already running a bit low on time, which I'm honestly quite upset of, because I didn't make many great moves in that game so far. I was thinking about c4 here, but because it just screamed like I should immediately get something, because my position just looks so good and all of my pieces are placed perfectly. But what I didn't like with c4 was then that he can take and then go knight e4. And here I didn't see how it continues, because he's just going to capture on c4 on the next move. And I cannot take on d3, because then he's going to take queen takes d3 and win a piece in the very end. Time control was 90 minutes plus 30 seconds and 30 minutes after move 40 as well. My opponent is 2400 FIDE master from Austria. I think he has 1 or 2 international master norms. So that's why I realized that c4 is probably not working so well. And then I just went king h8, because it just feels like a very, very useful move at some moment. And it's also quite a healthy move. What I didn't really realize that here I apparently have a very good plan of playing rook g8 and then to play for f5 and f4, which I didn't really realize. Like, I'm going to show you now what is the best line here for black. f5. Again, I didn't see that at all in the game. First of all, if f3, I can even go f4 and then just checkmate him here. Okay, I mean, this is sort of understandable that black is having a strong attack here. But what I don't understand yet, like, what is going on here? Knight takes c5, queen e7 is good. And then, like, what's my next move? I guess just f4. Huh. Rook he1. Wow, so many moves for black. Even bishop e2. And then to take on h4. It's crazy that black's attack is just crushing through here. Somehow I didn't expect that. Yeah, f4 is just a really strong threat. Yeah, maybe f5, Peter, immediately. F5 immediately is also very strong, yeah. Nothing wrong with that. It just felt to me like I'm weakening the e5 pawn. So that's why I think I was quite hesitant with that. But it would have been the strongest plan in the position. Also, e4 is quite strong. I also don't understand that, because I didn't really see what is my next move here after e4. Like, again, if white goes knight e4, for example. Oh, I can even go for this, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how good my position actually is if I can play all of that. I'm just gonna play rook e8 and rook e2 on the next move and probably have quite a few threats. But here I went for queen b7, which I think is still sort of reasonable as well, because I'm just putting my queen on this long diagonal. He went knight a4, and now c4 was working quite well. But after f3 now the huge shocker came, because I sacrificed the full piece for only one pawn. And honestly, I didn't even realize that it was only one pawn. Somehow I thought that it would be like two, and then just forgot that it's only one pawn after all. Instead, I need to go for the move bishop h5, which I also thought about, but once again, I didn't realize at all that my position is just so good here. Like, objectively, it's just winning for black, which yeah, I didn't understand in the game. Still don't really like g4 I was thinking about. I think bishop f7 I was looking at. Yeah. It's just really good. I even saw this idea with knight e6, knight f4 later on, which is probably just crushing, yeah. But I went for this piece sacrifice just because it looked so nice. But now he started defending quite well. After d4, he played rook hf1, which I sort of underestimated. Didn't completely overlook it, but I thought that I would just have something here, which wasn't really the case. How did the game end? I won that game in the very end. And overall, yeah, the tournament was fine, yeah, but don't spoil the result yet. I mean, I already spoiled it on my channel, so that's why I thought that anyway most people would be already familiar with the outcome. But overall, yeah, I mean, the result was fine, but it was also not that great, yeah. Sorry, Eugene, I didn't know that I was bothering some people. Sorry, Dervini. Oh no. I didn't mean that to happen. So I went for d4 and kind of underestimated this. I only saw moves like, for example, queen e2, and then I thought that this would just be winning with e4. But another thing which I missed was that even this is probably okay for white with the move knight c5, which is quite a crazy idea because white has a double attack on the queen and the pawn, with white's queen being hanging on e2. And I checked this line in the evening of my game, and it went something like this. It was knight c5, d3, and now knight d2. I thought the position was just super exciting. Like the engine on Lead Chess gave like 0-0, of course, but it was incredibly exciting because you never see this type of position in a real chess game usually. Let me just count. Black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns, and white has 1, 2, 3, 4. So black has 2 pawns for the piece. White set up sort of a blockade now with the knight on d2, but still the pawns are of course very strong in the long run. So the position is unclear, but like practically speaking, I would probably pick black here, I would say. But he played rook f1, which is good because now c takes d3 doesn't really work because it's not happening with the tempo, and white can just go knight c5 and then take on d3 on the next move. Was e4 instead of rook d5 possible? Ah, you mean here, yeah? That's a great question. So what was your idea if I go knight d2 now? Ah, e3, yeah? Yeah, that looks cool, yeah? And if I go knight h2, maybe that's a move. Maybe knight h2, yeah? I guess knight h2 is the move here. Not really sure how it continues here because rook d7, knight c5. d3, yeah. It's gonna be quite a lot of material now. So knight takes d8, d2. Maybe just knight takes g4. And if rook d8, maybe a move like, I don't know, knight d3, stopping the threat of d1. And then just going king f2. But what a position, yeah, like, usually you never see this type. Like 2 pawns on the second rank. I guess also rook d1 has kind of the same idea. Maybe that would be good too. That's quite a funny variation. Yeah, you saw knight e3 as well, yeah. So I guess that was, that's why it was this line. But e4 is also interesting, yeah, knight h2, and not so sure if it continues. But let's get back to the game. He played rook hf1. And as I said, now I realized that I cannot take here. But then I just went c3 and also felt like I should have quite good compensation here. Which is also the case, but compared to earlier, my position is not so great anymore. Like here, it's already extremely unclear. And what he should have maybe done was to give the piece back right away, taking on c3. And I was also a bit worried about that as well. Because white is a pawn up now. I, of course, still have very nice compensation, but also probably not much more than that. And white is already, for example, ready to trade queens with queen c7, because there's always going to be a checkmate threat on g7 as well. I wasn't really sure what I would play here even. Like maybe rook d7 I was thinking about. I don't know if that works. Yeah, rook d7 is already maybe not so great because of queen c6. The knight on h2 is worse placed for the pawns on e2, d2, and the king is further away. Still the position about earlier, yeah? Yeah, but I think it worked out in the end for white. So he definitely should have taken on c3, but he went queen e2 instead. And now went queen d5, which was quite a horrible move. My idea was just that I should stop knight c5 and keep out the knight from a4. It's also not clear what else I should do even here. Like maybe rook g8 is another logical move. Maybe that's a better try. And if knight c5, queen d5 now. Knight e4, maybe rook g6. It's crazy that I only have 1 pawn for the piece, but still quite a nice compensation. And I might have 2 pawns very soon after I take on h6. f5 still. In which position, Peter? Maybe you meant here, yeah, after knight e4. f5, then knight f6, yeah, then we have the fork on f6. On the queen on d5 and the rook on g8. But, well, principally, of course, I would love to play f5. Maybe therefore queen c6 is another try here. Knight e4, but also here f5 will never work because then maybe white has the option to take on e5 sometime. Like that would be quite a nice idea, yeah? Knight takes e5 and knight f7 checkmate, yeah? I saw some of those ideas in the game as well. That was pretty cool overall, this checkmate idea. I thought that was beautiful. Checkmating with knight and pawn now. Peter, instead of rook g8, you're saying? So, in here, yeah. Well, here f5, then queen takes e5 works with the check, yeah. That's the issue. That's why I cannot play f5 here, because the pawn is hanging. So I went queen d5, but here he had the chance to go queen e4, which I didn't really think could be so dangerous, because those endgames just looked visually nice for black always, but he can always just give the piece back on c3. For example, I don't know, in the game I just thought that white is like completely paralyzed, but sort of forgot that he can just always take here. I don't know what I was thinking, and now white is just a clear pawn up. And not much worse. So queen e4 would have been very unpleasant, but he went king g1. Now went rook g8, and now I'm fully back in the game. Rook f2, rook g6, I thought that was logical, and now he went for queen e4. Take, and here rook takes h6, which was another quite horrible move, because now I had really the chance to get already great position after bishop d7. Because I have the double threat to take on g3 and also to take on a4. I didn't even think about giving up my bishop because the bishop is just always so strong. But if I take on a4, it does make a lot of sense, because then white can never give back the knight. And also I'm ruining white's pawn structure. Like, for example, if white goes king g2, then, well, first of all, rook g8 is also coming. It's not even clear how he can protect the pawn. And yeah, otherwise I guess I'm just taking here in the next move. Maybe rook g2. And then I guess I can just take. And now something, yeah, maybe rook g4 going after the pawn on e4 in some moment. Yeah, how is bishop a4 threat? I also didn't understand it in the game, but it was the computer suggestion as far as I can remember it. But I would say the even bigger threat is g3, and it's actually very difficult to protect it. But let's just say white does it like this, just to understand this position. Like, also here on the board, I would not be so sure at first. But black has a concrete win with d3. It's funny how this rook on f8 is alone is good enough. At least it looks like it. Rook c3, then d2, and then I'm gonna win the exchange. Yeah, but I went rook h6, which wasn't a great move, but we were already quite low on time. But I had more time than him. That was a very important detail. Dervini, like the stream. 40 live, 17 likes. 17 likes only, yeah? Oof. Thank you for the encouragement, Dervini. But it already says like 32 likes for me, so no worries. No worries. So here I took on h6, now he went king g2, and now this was the decisive mistake. He should go knight h4. And now I think what maybe we both missed was that after d3 knight takes c3, d2, he can just go rook d1 here. And now the pawn is blockaded and white will probably win it. Also, my rook is sort of trapped on h6. So after knight h4, I'm honestly not sure what I would have done, because my rook on h6 is quite awkwardly placed. Yeah, no idea, honestly. Maybe bishop c8. I like that move to get rook g8 next. And again, objectively, the position is unclear. White can give back the piece, and then it's sort of equal, because e4 is also quite weak. So much Fischer action in the chat now. So that was all the best, but he went for king g2, and now it allowed me to give this check on h3. He has to go back to g1, because if he goes to the h file, then I have bishop e4, bishop f5 check, followed by bishop e4. So he went king g1, and now I've rook g8, and he cannot really protect the g3 pawn anymore, because again, after king h2, I just play bishop f5 and then take on e4. Prime Fischer versus Prime Karpov, who wins? Great question, huh? What do you guys think? I'm actually not sure at all. Like, it's so hard to say. I wouldn't even say that Karpov would have really the worst chances, like anything could happen. I think people are often underestimating Karpov because his style was definitely not as exciting as Fischer's or Kasparov's, for example. But still, he was a fantastic player, of course. My favorite player of all time, I would say Magnus and Capablanca, if I can pick two. Maybe also Magnus and Fischer if I would have to pick two. Not so sure about it. But Magnus would be in there for sure. So he tried rook h2 here, but now I won the pawn on g3, and now important rook hg6. I just shouldn't go back with this rook, because then my rook is just pinned down. My bishop on h3 is just pinned. Another move which I originally wanted to make was rook hg6, which then I also later on played. There was just one thing which I was, what was it? Later on, which I was thinking, but then realized that it's not good. What was it? I'm not sure what move I was thinking of. Anyway, I played rook hg6. And after knight h4, now rook g7. Maybe it was this moment where I was originally intending rook g4, but then didn't like it for some reason. Because anyway, I cannot really move this rook because my rook on g3 is hanging. And maybe I didn't really see a move after knight c5. Like, I'm not sure what I'm doing with my rooks. I cannot take on h4 because g3 is hanging. And otherwise, I'm not sure what I'm doing with my rooks. I mean, rook e3, but then knight f5, maybe. Oh, knight f5, rook f4. It was this one, maybe. Knight f3. Some motive like this, I saw that now the bishop on h3 is getting trapped. Was it here? I think I saw it some other moment as well, but I think it was here. Huh? Yeah, so that's why I decided to play rook g7 so that my bishop can move back. He played b4 and now rook d3, so he was quite low on time. Anyway, he's already lost here. I'm not sure what exactly b4 was for, but he only had seconds on the clock as well. Rook d3, now I'm threatening rook d2. And after rook c2, I went bishop g4, again threatening rook d2, because then, like, if white goes for this, I could play this, and after he takes, I'm promoting on the next move. So he tried rook h1, and now I have this nice final move, bishop d1, which is, yeah, just winning because I have this nice skewer on the rook and the knight on a4. So he gave the rook, knight f3, rook b1, but I have how many pawns now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 3 pawns and a rook for 2 knights, and most importantly, my pawns are super active. So I went rook b1, attacking b4, a3, rook a1, so now I'm winning another pawn. He made a couple of more moves, and here he resigned. I'm not even sure which route I would have taken. I think after king e2, black has many wins. I thought d3 is quite an easy one to just take the exchange, and there is no checkmate on the back rank. And I have 2 pawns and an exchange up, so that should be quite easily winning. But anyway, he resigned after rook AF1. I also have many other ways here. Like, I guess I could also go for this. Should also be completely winning. So yeah, that was the first game. I hope that was interesting or useful, or both. So what I'm gonna do now is somehow pull up the next game, which was round number 9 against Valentin Dragunov. Yeah, so here we got it already. There we go. Let's close this one. Yeah. So I'm gonna just briefly read what you guys were saying in the meanwhile. And then we're gonna start with round number 9 of the Austrian Chess Championship against Valentin Dragunov. Capablanca mentioned, yeah. I like Capablanca's games. Any tips on how to calculate further? I would say just solve a lot of exercises, tactics, any type of position. I think that helps the most, and just try to be strict with yourself, that if you solve exercises, to really try and focus on and try to get the full solution. Bobby Fischer is commenting about himself, yeah? Best thing. If you talk about purely talent, hard work, and obsession, addiction for chess, for sure it would be Fischer. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, Deveni, yeah. Weird to talk about yourself, yeah? Yourself even, like the real Fischer is behind it. You think that Fischer would have won against anyone? Like prime Bobby Fischer against prime Magnus Carlsen. You think that Fischer would win? Honestly, I don't think I agree. Pepsi Cola, I haven't played freestyle chess yet, or as I prefer to call it, Fischer random chess, or chess 960. I played it over the board with some friends a couple of times, but also not really that often. And I have never played a single freestyle chess game or chess 960 game online. Not a single time in my life. And honestly, I don't know what's wrong with me for that, because it just cannot be. Like, there have been so many freestyle Fridays, and I wanted to play in many of them. But still, I just never really, yeah, either if I got or I had something to do, and it just never really happened. Would you like me to stream it? I can definitely stream some Freestyle Friday at some point. Could be funny. Yeah, that's another good point. Yeah, that Fischer would have burnt out. Yeah, I mean that's of course another thing. Yeah, that if you work so much on chess, then of course at some moment As we also saw with Fischer, that at some moment you just can't do it anymore. In chess 960, who would have won 70-30 against Carlsen? So 70% Fischer, 30% Carlsen now. I don't know, honestly. Like, Magnus is also like just incredible, yeah. Like with the understanding. I'm not sure that Fischer is or what was like a bigger genius than Magnus. Like, just not sure if I agree with that one. Talking about Benoni, yeah. I guess then it's time for me to talk about my game again. My last game from the event, which was against Grandmaster Valentin Dragnev. And I had the white pieces. The game was at 10 in the morning, so therefore I was, yeah, not extremely well prepared, but still I'm quite curious about the opening actually. So since I didn't have so much time to prepare, I just went for my typical knight f3 repertoire. He went d5 and I went g3. And Valentin is a very solid player with quite a nice opening repertoire as well. And he played this very solid bishop e7 line. c4, short castle, and in this game I didn't go for the Catalan because I was aware that he goes for this line with c6 and I just didn't really check it before the game. And I know that he had quite a few games here already, quite some experience, and therefore I really didn't want to enter this line. So I went b3, and here he surprised me a little bit by still going for c6, which is of course quite a reasonable move, but to my knowledge it was never supposed to be that great of an idea to go for it if white hasn't gone d4 yet. The reason for that is after bishop b2, b6, d3, bishop b7, what happened in the game? So this we had in the game, but let's say if black just continues with knight d7 very logically here, now white gets e4, which typically he doesn't get as powerful if the pawn is already on d4. But here black's position is already quite bad, because white is just going to play e5 in the next move and just grab a lot of space here. So I'm quite curious now actually what is the best way to play that, because I haven't really checked the opening yet. What was quite obvious to me was that that d4 is definitely a move as well, but then of course black is transposing to the classical closed Catalan, which is not really what I wanted. So therefore bishop b2 was logical. And what Valentin now mentioned to me after the game, main line is c5 instead of c6. Great question. Yes, c5 is probably the main move. And after c takes d5, either e takes d5 or knight takes d5. Another very common move is b6 here. Also d4 is possible. So yeah, those are the typical moves. Yeah, Valentin mentioned to me after the game that here he should go for b5 and that he just mixed it up. And after d3 that he wanted to go b takes c4. And if d takes c4, just play this type of Grunfeld position, which is probably not bad at all for black. Like black is probably just equal. Maybe a better try for white is to take with the b pawn, then to play knight d2, queen c2, and I would still probably pick white just because the bishop here on c8 is not really going to find such a great square. Yeah, d4 is also quite a big line. We're talking about this position that black has a couple of moves, and d4 is one of the moves which I mentioned earlier. So Valentin mentioned b5, which is maybe the best try. Also, computer gives queen c2 here, which might be an interesting move. Not exactly sure what is the idea if black goes bishop b7. Ah, c5 is actually a threat. So knight d7 and then just d4. And white has all the space. And, well, first of all, if white gets knight d2 here, black's position is really disgusting. because now white even has the chance to play e4 maybe with good preparation. So black probably should go for knight e4 and go for the stone wall. But as we know, computers are also not such a big fan here. Yeah? Like white is maybe going to go knight e1, knight d3, knight f3, and then just control the e5 square. And just look at the bishop on b7. It's quite sad, yeah? So queen c2 is interesting, and that's why the computer says bishop b7 is not a good move. And he should either go knight d7 or more humanly, I would say bc4, bc4. And now bishop b7, and I guess it's gonna transpose as well to like d3 and then knight d2 and so on. Still looks quite pleasant for white, I would say. But also solid for black, of course. But Valentin went b6. Now I went d3, which I guess is fine. I was wondering, however, what he's going to do after knight c3. Because d4 I thought never really works. I'm just going knight a4 and he cannot protect d4. Like if he goes c5, I'm just either going to take or just move the knight and the rook on a8 is going to be lost. And otherwise I'm winning the d4 pawn. Also note that b5 is not actually winning the piece on a4 because I have knight takes d4. And then I'm going to capture on a8, winning the exchange at least. And after knight c3, I was thinking actually what he would do. In the game, I thought that knight d7 is probably the most accurate move. Because typically in this Catalan, after d4, black always wants to get bishop a6 to attack the pawn on c4. So that's why I thought after knight c3, bishop b7, I must be playable too, for sure. But now after d4, at least he's not getting bishop a6 in immediately. But anyway, I still knew this plan with d3 and I thought it's the best try, so I went for this. But it was surprisingly difficult in the game actually to get something. He went bishop b7, and now I went knight bd2. If I go knight c3 now it's already a bit different, because now I thought he can go d4, and after knight a4, for example, now already b5 works, because now at the end the rook is not hanging on a8, because black has already the bishop on b7. Stonewall of bishop on b7, yeah, I mean that must be the worst. That was quite a sad position. Yeah, I'm thinking, guys, how can I get an advantage for this? Because it's also important for my repertoire, like what I'm supposed to do here after c6. Not so many people play it, but it might actually be quite an interesting system, especially if you play this line against the Catalan. I think it would be quite nice to make it work for black. And again, I don't think so many people play it. Like, if you look here, so many games, c5, d4, b6, but c6, not so many. So maybe this is gonna wander into some of my next opening idea videos. Maybe d3 is interesting immediately. b6 and e4, because I was looking at some of those ideas. If white can somehow give up the pawn. But I was never too impressed. Like, if I take here, knight takes e4, maybe knight e5, yeah. Yeah, still, I'm not such a big fan. Black probably has some resources like f5 or so. Maybe also knight takes e4 immediately. Surely I have some compensation somehow, but it's not really what I was hoping for. Yeah, this c6 line is really a great question. So bishop, I guess I have to move the bishop here anyway. b6. Does e3 make any sense? Because now we are kind of playing this line with b6. This line I actually had in game number 1 of the tournament against Jakob Postelmeier. And we have basically the same. just with a little bit of a difference, which is that black has played c6, which is probably quite a useless move. I guess so. I guess bishop b7, queen e2. Maybe even this is not so bad for black, huh? Like, just imagine the variation with another move order. Like, imagine after e3, black plays c6 here now. Like, no one would do that. But we reached the same position, and even this is maybe not so bad. I'm also thinking, like, is a5 maybe possible? Because typically what you would love with black is to get some position like this, get the bishop on a6 and have the pawn on a5 already. This would be the perfect scenario. Also, I'm not sure if white really has something so special here. Yeah, this is an interesting line. I have to say that. So I went d3, bishop e7, and now knight d2. And now I thought that e4 is quite a big strategical threat already. So that's why he played his next move. Which was very important to stop e4, which I'm going to show in a second. Felix, what should be one strategy while playing rapid chess? Somebody is good at classical but suck in rapid. How to develop that intuition for faster time controls? I guess get a lot of practice. Like what I'm struggling with recently, I also haven't been performing great in rapid and blitz. And I think for me, at least, it mostly has to do that I'm not practicing enough. Like I'm not playing enough online blitz specifically, and I think you should definitely do that to get a better intuition, and also analyze the game seriously after you play them. This 91 idea, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Let me put it on the board. I think I know which one you mean, because Luca Moroni actually also played it against me in the Croatian league. It was this, I think, knight c3, c5, and here knight e1. Or was it here? Maybe it was after knight e7? I think it was this one. That might have been the idea. Or maybe with this inclusion, c5, knight e1? I think maybe this one now. That could be it. Yeah, Luca Moroni played this against me in the Croatian league. But let's get back to this line. So I played knight e2. Again, I'm not really sure what is the best try for white. Maybe e3. And then just some position like this. Maybe not put the queen on c2 just yet. Knight e7. Yeah, go for some d4. Actually, very much reminding of the Semislav now. Like this anti-Miran, where typically the queen is on c2 and the bishop is on e2. And then white anyway wants to regroup the bishop to g2, and here the bishop is already on g2. So I guess this can be seen as somewhat of a success for white. Maybe that's the best for white in this line. I went knight d2 and now he went c5, because now I'm not getting e4 anymore. And I played e3. So now I realized I didn't really get anything out of the opening. At first I considered c takes d5, knight takes d5 and d4, but it just didn't look like anything at all. I thought he would go knight d7, and I cannot even go knight e4 often because of knight e3. And otherwise, yeah, the position is just dead equal. And I just wanted to have some sort of play, at least for now. So that's why I went e3, knight c6 and queen e2. Maybe knight e5 is another interesting way to play the position, just to trade this pair of knights. And then go queen e2. Because black already has a bit more space, I would say, and therefore I guess it's a good decision for white. Or at least it's possible for white to trade some pieces. I went queen c2, queen e2, queen c7, rook ac1, rook a8, which surprised me a little bit. I was mostly considering rook fd8. And I'm also not sure why he didn't take this one. Because, well, rook a8 is not a bad move or anything. It's just that it would look much more natural to have this rook on a8 to then have the opportunity to play rook c8. So, yeah, actually one interesting thing here, after c5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, Valentin then mentioned to me that I can maybe just play like this, a3, knight c6, e3. I thought that it wouldn't be anything at all for me, which is maybe also the case. It's like a hedgehog structure, but black is of course very solid, yeah. Can go bishop f6. So I guess the position is roughly balanced, but also doesn't seem like white has anything. Valentin would have even taken with the pawn, he told me, which is definitely also playable. I would have been sort of happy to see it after d4, because I get to play against the hanging pawns. But objectively, it's also nothing for white. So I went for this, queen e2, queen c7, and as I said, rook a8 was a bit surprising. I went d4, because otherwise black might be actually threatening to play d4 himself. Like if I go rook d1, for example, which is also natural, then black could go d4 already. Take, and with this Benoni bishop on b2, this shouldn't be so great for white. It's out in the game. Can you try d3 and e4 before bishop b2, like queen c2? Yeah, let's have a look at that. Like, for example, here, huh? d3, b6. So earlier we saw the move e4 here, which was one of my suggestions, which is surely interesting, but black can probably take the pawn on e4. And the idea was queen c2. Well, the thing is that the queen on c2 is often maybe not so great. Let's say I go bishop e7, e4. And I don't have the knight on d7 yet, so maybe I can go for c5 here. Another thing which I'm not sure of after queen c2, if I go c5 here. And, well, probably I'm blundering, yeah? After d4, I guess you're winning with e5 and then just move the knight. And you're winning the rook on a8. But maybe this one, what I just showed, to go just c5. And, yeah, queen e2. I guess you have to move the queen again. Definitely playable, yeah? It's this typical kind of King's Indian attack, but you lost some time with the queen. But it's an interesting idea. I'm gonna give you that. Knight d4 if he takes on e4. I guess you mean this line. If he takes knight e4, maybe bishop f6 can come. Could be one idea. Because white is not the only one with pressure on the long diagonal. Black also has some ideas, so that's why I wasn't so sure if it's like so fantastic for white. Yeah, let's get back to the game. So here I played e3, and I was a bit surprised by rook a8. I went d4, take everything. Okay, one positive side which rook d8 has is that the queen can go to b8. That's one thing. Actually, I should also mention that I can definitely take with the e-pawn as well, and then play with the hanging pawns. It's just that I don't really like playing with the hanging pawns. I prefer to play against them, so that's why I didn't make that decision. So I went for this, took on d5. And around here I was already, like, honestly, I didn't really know what I want from this game, because obviously the opening has brought me up absolutely nothing at all. And I was thinking if I just should steer the game towards a draw immediately. I was kind of going a middle way. Like, I wanted to keep some play, but at the same time have no risk at all. And then later on, I didn't really do that the most efficient way, I would say. I was thinking to just take on f6 here, take on d5, and then go for something like knight e4. And the position would just be a draw. Like I was thinking about this, for example, rook d1, and yeah, nothing much happening. It would just be a draw. Instead, I took on d5, rook d5, bishop b2 back. Again, not so sure what I should do here. I just wanted to move the bishop. Like if, for example, rook d1 was logical, then I thought he might have ideas like this to push e5, but of course it's also can be a bit risky for him as well. That's why I went bishop e2. And at the same time, I'm trying to get the knight to d4 or e5 to get to c6. That was another idea, because the pawn is on b6, and therefore c6 is always going to be a weak square for me to make use of. So after knight f3, he played queen b7. And I played rook d1, which is not a bad move at all. But here I think it would be just time for me to make a draw, to take on and play, for example, rook d1 or rook c2 or just anything, yeah, like rook c2, rook d1, rook c2, rook c1 on the next move, and just a clear draw. Rook d1 is also fine, but now he's getting the knight somewhat active, and my bishop on b2 is actually not such a great piece after all, and black does have some optical pressure, at least on this long diagonal. I took on d5, rook d5, bishop e5, trying to get in rook c7. Also, I thought that his idea might be rook f5 in some cases, so that's why I wanted to do that. He played rook d7, rook d1, going for the next exchange. He went h6. First of all, I was actually expecting him to go f6 and then e5. And I wasn't sure how exactly I would play it. Maybe just h4 here, I was thinking, and then to go knight e1. But black definitely has the better side of the draw already here. So already by now, I definitely kind of overdid it a little bit. He went for h6, which is also reasonable. Bishop b2 back. And b5, which is the best try by far, because he wants to get the pawn to b4. And from there on, a2 might be a weakness, and he also has a c3 square now. Position is still a dead draw. Of course, objectively, also what I played in the game. Computer gives queen d3, and I'm trying to figure out what happens after knight g3 here. I can just take here and take on b5. What is wrong with me? Why didn't I go for it then? Maybe knight c5 was an issue, but then maybe I can go queen d4. Threaten checkmate. Yeah, that might be a bit easier, but I went h4 to guard the g5 square so that I can move the knight without allowing knight g5. He went b4, knight e1, and bishop f6 now. Otherwise, if he goes knight c3, I thought I would just take and go queen d3, then knight c2, and I'm also blockading the pawn on c3, and it might even be weak in some time in the future. So he went bishop f6. I took gf, which is already a normal decision, but already somewhat risking something, because sometimes the king could become a little bit weak. But of course, black is still the one definitely playing for something, I would say. I played knight d3 because I wanted to get the knight to f4 to help with the attack sometimes. He went f5. I went knight e5. I could also go for this, but I thought he would go, what was it? I think queen c7, and then knight c3 on the next move. And I kind of missed that the knight on h5 is just so powerful. I don't know. Like if knight c3 already, the queen is maybe coming in at some time. Or just queen d2, everything is protected. So maybe the knight on h5 would have been a bit more efficient. I went for this, which is also perfectly fine. And after a5 and now a3, I offered a draw, which he accepted because he was already running quite low on time. But then we analyzed it a little bit, and it was not so clear to us if it's actually such an easy draw for white. We were talking about the line after knight e4. And now queen b2, we thought was logical. Queen d7 or queen d8 doesn't really matter. And here we thought about taking queen d1 check, king g2, and now a takes b4. And white actually doesn't have many moves here. Like, what is white playing? The computer gave this move f3, but I think there's no chance at all that I would find it in a game. Apparently this is a draw of the queen d2. But first of all, you have to see this. That this is somehow holding, yeah, queen f6 with perpetual. And after queen d2, knight d2, b3 is protected, yeah. I'm not sure at all if I would found f3, queen a2, maybe. Those two are the only moves for white in the position. Yeah, this is round number 9, yeah, of the tournament. Before we had a look at round number 8. Yeah, I also think no one would play f3 here. Queen a2 is definitely more logical. And here, what were we discussing? Because black still had some possible tries left in the position. Like if I go king g7, then I guess just queen b2 check back. I don't know what else can black try here. What do you guys think? Position is a complete draw objectively, but it just feels like white needs to be a bit careful. It just feels like it. Any ideas how we can pose some issues? For black, yeah. How can black try for something in this position? Yeah, getting the knight to e2 is one idea. Queen d5 also one suggestion by many people. Yeah, knight to e2, yeah. Knight c3, knight e2. Let's have a look, yeah, knight c3. I guess I would give a check on a8, king g7. And now I have to find counterplay ASAP. Maybe queen b8. So if you take on b3, I'm hoping that I have some perpetual check here. Which seems reasonable enough because I can always go, for example, queen c7 or queen f6. And the same here, I have queen b8 and king g7, queen e5, and if king h7, I guess queen c7 or queen f8. But white is just in time, it looks like, yeah. And here if knight e2, queen e5 check, king g6, h5, king h5. Oh, white is already winning here. Can you guys see how white is winning? Yeah, what's black's threat? Yeah, that's actually a good question, because queen g1 is not that big of a threat, yeah, because just king f3, and like also here if black were to move and goes queen g1, just king f3, and not much is happening, I would say. g4, if g4, can I take with the king? It also looks very scary, but for black, but now all of a sudden black is threatening checkmate at least. The winning move, okay, I saw it with the computer, but the winning move is queen g7. And still, queen g1 is not a threat at all. If queen d5, I guess just f3 and then g4. And if queen g1, just king f3, yeah, casually. And then I can also pick up the pawn on f7 very soon. So the plan with knight d2 is probably not so effective. Another try which you guys said was queen d5. I think it was here. And also here I have to go for this move f3 because king g1, now everything is weakened, and I thought that at some moment he has this idea. Where was it? If king h2, then queen f3, I think it was this, and then I cannot protect f2. And if this, because now black is a couple of, like, one tempo up, which white had already the queen on f6. So here I guess that this would be quite scary for white with queen d1 or probably queen h1 to come. It was a move earlier when the knight was still on e4, queen d5. Okay, thank you. So here after queen a2, queen d5. Huh. Well, I really hate playing f3 in all of the positions. Maybe I have to. Maybe I can. Maybe I can go f3. And if knight c5, queen a5. Maybe I could also go queen a5 immediately with the same idea. And now also move the king. Because both b4 and c5 are often hanging. Like king g1, if knight b3, I'm gonna take here. Should be a draw. And for example, if black wants to take with the queen on b3, then c5 is always hanging. So it should definitely be a draw. The funny thing, I actually thought he would go knight b1 just here, and after queen b2, just this, and it's a draw, yeah. But what I actually missed was this trick that after queen c2, he cannot even take here, because then he cannot take back because the queen is hanging on c7. So here I would even be winning. But of course, black could also go back knight c3, yeah, and still nothing bad happened. So knight b1 wouldn't be the best try. Knight d4 would be. Actually, maybe a better defense would be queen a2. Immediately, yeah. Maybe that makes sense. Because now once the a file opens up, I already have the queen on a2. And it's just my move. Before we had this position with black to move. So I guess this should definitely be an achievement. Still, white is the one that needs to prove the draw here. That's for sure. I mean, probably there are draws with numerous ways, but white needs to be a bit careful. I don't know if knight e5 is possible, but maybe queen d5. Maybe I'm gonna give a check first and then look for some concrete ideas, but yeah, nothing really there, yeah. I have to go back queen a2. So it's also not so clear, even with the tempo up, if This is so easy for white. Of course, computer gives zeros, but I have to be a bit careful here. That's for sure. Yeah, if f3 and king h2, e3 can also become weak. Generally, I would love not to play f3 in those positions and to hold the position like that. But definitely, it's a bit scary for white to hold. I think I would have managed to hold it, but yeah, not so easily. Yeah, anyway, that was the analysis of the tournament. Honestly, I'm really tired from the event. It was super tough since I had strong opponents in every round, and all of them were super well prepared. Like my opponent from round number 1, Jakob Postelmeier, Dominic Horvath, who also played against him, obviously, spoke to him, and he said that he prepared for Dominic's game 8 hours. Which, okay, I prepared maybe 1 or 2 hours per game because I just wanted to save the energy. But to just play against this level of preparation, it was very challenging, to say the very least. And most of them were preparing so much. It was a round robin tournament. Yeah, 10 players, everyone against everyone. So the level of preparation was pretty insane in the tournament. And actually, when it comes to that, I'm quite content of how it went, because I really always got a normal position in every game. Even the game I lost was quite a successful opening outcome. I equalized with the black pieces and then just later on misplayed it. Did you prepare during the tournament or beforehand? Both of it. But I try actually nowadays that I do most of my preparation before the tournament. I think that's the best case scenario, because if you have to do the work at the tournament, then you lose a lot of energy, and if you do it before the event, then you just have to repeat some of the files. And the best case scenario is that you already kind of know a lot of the openings well. And I played a lot of training games before the event in the variations which I wanted to play for the tournament. So that was very, very helpful for me. And I would also recommend that to you guys. If you have some tournament which you're really taking seriously, I would really recommend you to think about what openings you would like to play in the tournament and just have everything prepared. Like have your files ready so that you only need to repeat them and not figure out during the event, like, what am I even playing against this line? Because then you just need to figure it out before the game, which tends to be quite stressful pretty often. So that's it, yeah? That's it, Eugene. That's it of today's stream. Unless you guys have any more questions about the event, I think I'm gonna call it a day. How do you play training games? Do you have someone specific you play against? Yeah, I usually just play against some of my friends who are also grandmasters and who are professionals, and they are just happy to get some practice as well. So it's always good to just play against people who are sort of on your level, and then just analyze the games together. So that's what I did before the tournament. Thank you, Eugene. Good night to you too. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for watching. When is your next event? Actually, long time. The European Team Chess Championship is the next one, and it only starts in the start of October. So I have quite a long time until then to prepare, but a lot of things are coming. Courses, videos on my channel, and for now I'm focusing on that. Yeah, play against weak engines if you don't know anyone. I'm not sure if I agree with that. You can do that, of course, if there's really no other option, but I think it's still better to play against humans. Like, you can just play random games online. I think it's still better than to just play against a weak engine. Thank you, Taliesin. Rest well. I'm also exhausted from the amateur tournament. Yeah, I'm happy that you had such a great comeback in the end. It was great to meet you also at the event. Taliesin is one viewer who who spoke to me during the event, and it was great to meet him. And he had a very nice comeback in the very end. Didn't start so well in the tournament, but then made, I think, 3.5 out of 4 in the very end. But that was very impressive. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and thanks for being such a great community and sticking around with the chat, asking many questions. I hope you enjoyed the stream as much as I did, and yeah, I don't know what's coming next. Probably it's the King's Indian repertoire for the patrons, but yeah, let me guys know what you would like to see apart from that. I'm definitely gonna start again posting some checkmate exercises, and other than that, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys would like to see in the following weeks. Don't forget to like the video before you go. Thank you so much, Paul, for sticking around, and it's great that you mentioned that. I think that's a good way to end the stream. So again, thank you all for watching, and I'm gonna see you next time.